right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. I'm Rob Vining, lead faculty for ICE for the telehealth division. And this morning, first time on here, so you'll see a little bit of coffee, or not a little bit, a jug of coffee. But what I want to talk to everybody about is the number one question that I get all the time from other PTs talking about how do I start my telehealth practice. And the easiest thing in the world is to simply start with practice. So the number one thing that you're going to do is you're going to just go to, if you go to zoom.com and you actually start there and you get a free account. And then with that free account, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to start practicing with patients, friends, and family. And you're going to be able to actually get in there and start to practice how it actually feels like and what it would look like if you're going to be treating somebody without using your hands. Now, the hard part about that is if you've been doing this for a while, doing physical therapy, practicing, seeing patients over and over again, and you've never been able to do that without the use of these, it is a little bit of a tough slog the first few times. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to get better at it, just with everything else, just with, going on your clinicals and this is your very first time on a clinical setting and you step in and you're like, what am I going to do? Right. And it becomes easier and easier because just like with everything, it's just experience. And you already have the knowledge and the skill set up here to figure it out and to know what you're going to do to try and figure out different strategies and different analogies that you may have to use when you're seeing a patient over telehealth versus doing something in person where you can use your hands. But the number one thing you have to do is you have to practice. And it's not only practicing with the environment of being able to see a patient in front of you on a screen and be able to dig into that subjective, really do a good job of trying to flesh out all the details before you even suggest anything for this patient to do. It's a little bit different, but like I said, once you practice, this is going to be something that gets easier and easier. And then you also want to be able to practice with your technology. So think about any sort of piece of software that you're trying to learn. A lot of people might have learned something with, let's say, like video editing, or if you're doing something with any sort of software like Photoshop, anything like that. Whenever you first start with a piece of software, it's tough to kind of figure out, okay, where's the buttons on this thing? I need to do a drop shadow on this. Where is that option? It's all these little tiny details that you have to figure out. But once you use that piece of software over and over, that becomes easier as well, even to the point where if a friend had that same piece of software, you could guide them on what to use, what buttons to hit, kind of because you know all the shortcuts and what you should be doing to make all those shortcuts easily accessible. And that's the same thing when you're doing telehealth. If the patient has questions about, hey, where's this, where's the button that puts my video on the screen? Or how do I do this with this video? How do I resize it? How do I accidentally hit a share button? How do I unshare now? All these different options are things that you're going to know with the software that you're using. And granted, in our course, Telehealth Building Your Digital Practice, we all started with Zoom, the free version of Zoom. You can make that encrypted to where it's a higher level of security in that data stream going back and forth between you and the patient when you're practicing this, when you're first starting out. But it's a fairly simple piece of software to get started with to at least give you an idea and the capability to wrap your head around, how am I using this? What do I tell my patient if they're unable to hear me? How do I use this chat option here to talk to them when they don't have their audio on? The more that you're going to be invested in learning your software platform and the more practice that you have with that software platform, the easier it's going to be to basically just pitch this to the patient, connect with them, and then actually be able to tell the patient, hey, just click these two buttons here and you're going to be right here live with me. You're going to hear me. There's not going to be any difficulties. And you're going to be able to spend your time in treatment of your telehealth visit versus tech support of your telehealth visit. And nothing is more frustrating, believe me. Whenever I first started out, it was a train wreck of software that didn't necessarily work all the time. Um, the bandwidth was really bad. This was back in like 2005, 2006, and it was real choppy. But right now, the software that we have, even the free stuff, like I said, Zoom's free account, it's super easy, very lightweight to learn. And all it takes is practice. So that's the number one suggestion that I give everybody that asks me, how do I get started with telehealth? I don't give them any instructions on specific ways to treat or specific avenues to look down, like, oh, this piece of software, this is it, right? I just give them the easiest suggestion of a free piece of software, Zoom. And if you're looking for it, go to zoom.us. Use that free piece of software to connect with family and friends. Make sure that you're practicing. That is the biggest thing. You've got to be able to practice to make perfect. And then there's also going to be learning the technology. Once you learn that technology inside and out, then you can actually spend your time treating patients versus doing tech support. And another thing that I would suggest when you're going into that next step. So let's say we're past step one. You've practiced, 10 or 15 patients. You've seen pretend patients, either a spouse or loved one, or like I said, a family member is the easiest way to do it. Just have them pretend, like have them say, all right, mom, you've got a shoulder issue today, and we're going to talk about that for 10 or 15 minutes. That's all it takes. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I've got to log 10 to 15 hours. Don't put that much pressure on yourself. It's not needed. So the number one thing that you need to do is just basically get comfortable with that technology. But that next layer that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to invest in, okay, how do I make this the highest quality video call with the best audio that I can have, so that at least my patient has that first experience of just, oh wow, this guy's a super professional. Like there's no doubt about it. This person has their stuff in order. They're able to guide me on what to do with the software, and it also looks great. There's a high definition video. The audio sounds good. It's not choppy at all. Um, Quick caveat. Here's another tip if you want to write something down here. Make sure that anyone that you're talking to, especially when you're practicing, make sure that they don't have anything on in the background like Netflix, Hulu, any sort of streaming service, because that will take priority bandwidth over your live video session. So if you can do that, then you're not going to have this choppy session where you're having to ask the patient every other, sentence. What did you say? I didn't hear that. What did you say? And, the capability for Zoom to adjust is okay. They can adjust to a certain amount. But when your bandwidth drops, usually under like 1 meg per second upload or download, it'll actually cut you off and then reconnect again, trying to find a better connection. So when that's the case, usually it's that somebody has some sort of streaming service in the background. So if you've got a kiddo at home and you're seeing a patient virtually, make sure that you don't toss them on the iPad on Netflix or Hulu or some sort of streaming service, because that will eat up your bandwidth and you will have a limited amount of bandwidth for yourself and your call. So, side caveat there. But the next step that you want to make sure of is that you're getting good audio and video, because that's your first impression. Think about the very first time that you're going to see somebody virtually for in your digital practice, and you're going to see them and you show up and basically you have a horrible internet connection, your audio and video are horrible, and it's just choppy the whole time. It's a horrible experience. And so, what you have to prepare for is you not only have to know your software, you got to be comfortable in that environment of seeing a patient, not being able to touch them, but being able to dig out the real root of the problem and be able to address that, and at least be able to triage them to somebody that, if you're not going to be able to treat them properly virtually, triage them to somewhere that can. And that's a whole different marketing moment that we talk about in our class. Um, but the other thing that you want to make sure of is that when you're going through this process, you know your software and that you have the best first impression possible. So that first impression, like I said, if you've got a good high quality video, it's not choppy, you have good quality audio, you're going to be fine. It's going to look great. It's like they just walked into a brick and mortar clinic and it's perfectly clean. There's not towels strewn everywhere. There's not, a half dozen uneaten cookies because it's Cookie Friday sitting on a table there. You want to have your clinic clean for a patient that's going to walk in for the first time. And the same thing goes for your digital practice. You want to make sure that you're presenting the best environment possible so that when they hop on the call and they see you immediately, they know, oh, this is no joke. This guy does this. This looks super professional, right? Or look at her setup. This obviously is something that she's done 58,000 times. So the more professional and the more high quality that you have things looking in your call, like I said, video and audio, the thing that you're going to be able to do is you're going to create that first impression that is just absolutely perfect. And you want that because it's for some people, it's already hard enough to try and think about having I would say, a scenario where the patient might not be used to a digital environment for treatment. If they're already kind of nervous for that, which granted, let's just kind of throw out the baby with the bathwater. Usually that's not the case because more people are getting used to telemedicine visits for like primary care physician visits. And the more used to receiving services with that avenue, that digital avenue, the more that they're just going to show up and be like, okay, what are we doing today? So don't worry about that side. The telemedicine side, the teledocs, the MD Lives, all these different corporations of the world that are creating telemedicine platforms are making it a lot easier for us. So the thing that you want to do is control your end of the audio and video. So like I said, it's really not that difficult to get started. Start with Zoom, www.zoom.us. It's a free platform that does an excellent job of adjusting and being able to take the live video and live audio that you're presenting and adjusting to the patient's bandwidth. So it always tries to create the best possible call. And so that's the first suggestion. Second suggestion, get in your reps and sets. Make sure that you're talking to patients, pretend patients, family members, friends, whatever. And then the third thing that you want to focus on is a good quality audio and a good quality video, because that's your first impression. All right. I will catch up with everyone the next time. Thanks for checking in today at the PT on Ice Daily Show. All right. And have a good one.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.